Hello and welcome to Attention Central Texas. I'm your host for today, Charles Jenkins, and today we have on the show Mike Foster, who's the program specialist with A World for Children. Hello and welcome to today's show.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Mike, let's just get right into the questions. First, just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a native Texan. Grew up in Corsicana, Texas, just north of here.
Okay.
Went to Austin to go to UT. I entered the School of Architecture. I needed a part-time job. Went to work at a psychiatric hospital. Had an interview at 11 o'clock. It lasted 20 minutes. And they said, could you start at 3 o'clock this afternoon? I should have been a little leery about that. I was a bit naive. Showed up at 3 o'clock. Went to work on a locked unit with 20 emotionally disturbed adolescent girls, half of which were from inner city Chicago in the projects. No training, nothing. And so I started there and really enjoyed the work. I was in my third year at the School of Architecture, and I rode a bike to class, and I finally tangled with an automobile and had to have my shoulder surgically repaired.
Wow.
And so it put me out of the School of Architecture for a year, but I had worked at the hospital for almost 10 months. And anyway, I never went back to architecture. I've been working with kids and families for 39 years now. And I always say, you know, if that accident was divine intervention or you know, people say you have a calling for this. I worked with a psychiatrist who says crazy people attract crazy people. And so, you know, whether it was a calling, divine intervention, or an accident, it's become a 39-year career working with kids and families.
All right. Tell us a little bit about A World for Children.
Well, A World for Children has kind of quietly grown. They've been in existence about 13 years. And they have quietly grown into one of the largest providers of foster care and adoptive services in the state of Texas. Our corporate headquarters is in Round Rock, but we have 11 offices all around the state. So we serve almost the entire state of Texas. And our average daily census is now 900, averages 900 children and youth a day. So we're right up at the top as one of the largest agencies.
What, in your position as program specialist, what are some of the things you do at A World for Children?
Well, I'm really looking at improving the services. One of the things that happens in the child welfare system in the state of Texas is our services are delivered in pretty fragmented ways, and there's not a lot of consistency to service delivery. Kids get placed long ways from their birth family, get separated from their siblings. A lot of negative things happen. They may disrupt from one home, go to another agency. They can start a very, very problematic path where they do get disrupted. So A World for Children is committed into trying to build a continuum of care so that does not happen to children and youth and families. And so one of my projects is to look at opening a residential treatment center so we will have a continuum of care and transition kids in a thoughtful, orderly way from a treatment setting to a foster home to adoption or whatever permanency is going to be. The big buzzword in behavioral health and foster care is trauma-informed care. We've learned how devastating trauma is and what the consequences are if we don't treat that and treat it appropriately. And so we're looking at trying to recruit families based on using trauma-informed principles and developing a training curriculum based on trauma-informed care to make them better prepared to work with the children and youth.
And so how many years of experience you have?
Really 39 years of and you know, I've done, I started out as a direct care worker in a locked psychiatric unit. I was a group home parent to 8 boys, including 3 of which were autistic.
Wow.
And our daughter was 9 months old at the time. I was a residential treatment administrator for 20 years. And then, I really saw the power in family-based care. And so I've been involved in family-based services and foster care and adoption for about 14 or 15 years.
Wow.
And I've also taught briefly. I actually have a certified in special ed and elementary ed. And so teaching is still something I love to do. So
I think that's amazing. You have such a great history in working with kids, and not only the kids but the families. What are some things you have taken away from the work you do?
Well, first of all, the power of family. Mm-hmm. Every child that I've ever worked with, or children that I've spoke with or got to know, they can point to one or two people who helped them turn their life around. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I learned a long time ago that it's relationships, that you change because of relationships, and a healthy relationship is the strongest healing factor, I think, that there is. And these kids, we have to connect them with healthy people and build those healing relationships. The other thing is that, these kids, every child and youth I've ever worked with wanted to go back to their birth family. Mm-hmm. And, I've worked with people who have horribly abused their children, but I've never met anyone who had a child so they could abuse them. And most adults who abuse their children are actually following a pattern that they went through. And, they're because that trauma got passed on from one generation to the other, they're doing the same things to their kids that happened to them. And then, of course, that's the frightening thing. If we don't give these kids the care they need, they'll pass that trauma on to their children in the next generation, and we'll just start over again.
Wow. What can we do to help prevent child abuse?
Well, I think the only way to do that, I serve on some statewide groups and have even served on some national groups looking at advocating for services for maltreated children and their families. But it really has to start at the grassroots. And, we see so many families who don't know how to begin and how to be a parent. Jim Hinkle was a psychiatrist who mentored me for many years. And he said the two most important things we'll ever do in our life is to be a spouse or a partner to someone and to be a parent. And we get more training in our society to drive a car than we do either one of those things.
Wow. And
so, I'm a huge believer in education. I'm a huge believer in early intervention. As a school teacher, a kindergarten teacher can spot the at-risk children the first week of school. And we should reach out to those parents and say, wow, you look like you're struggling. Do you need some help? And get started helping them that way instead of years later there's a hotline call and it says you've abused your children or you've neglected your children. So prevention needs to be owned by the neighborhood. It needs to be owned by the community. I don't think we'll ever solve the issues from the government and the top down. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to come from a grassroots. Churches and faith-based communities need to take responsibility for that. I worked for an agency one time where our founder started the One Church, One Child movement in Chicago.
Wow. And
he figured out if I could just get one church to take in one child and serve that child, we could solve the abuse and neglect problems in a city the size of Chicago. And so there's a huge need for us to build that grassroots momentum to take on abuse and neglect. Abuse and neglect is not a child welfare issue, it's a public health issue, and we all need to embrace it.
You said something that was key, that's been a theme throughout this whole interview: serve, serve, serve. The scripture reminds us that Christ didn't come to be served, but to serve. And we need to get out into the community, whoever we are, and start serving and taking back our communities and doing things for foster children. What are some things World for Children need help with, or need parents? What are some things they need to help?
Well, of course, we always need foster families. We always, in the state of Texas, we have 27,000 kids in the foster care system in the state of Texas. We have 4,000 kids waiting for adoption in the state of Texas. We always have more children than we do families. So the first thing is to search your heart and decide if you want to be a foster family. We have a tremendous need for families who would consider working with older children and adolescents.
Mike, how can our viewers get a hold of you if we got somebody watching and wants to be a foster parent? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, they certainly can email me directly at just fosterm@awfc.org, or the World for Children website is just www.aworldforchildren.org, and there's a lot of information on that website. They can call our number at 512-218-4400 and start the process. And we'll go just about any place, anywhere to talk to people about becoming a foster family.
I like that. I like that last saying. I play football, and they say we'll go any place, anywhere, anytime to play. So I'm pretty excited about that. We got about a couple more minutes left. Is there something you want to say, or any special programs y'all got coming up in regards to foster care?
You know, it's a huge commitment to become a foster parent, but there are a lot of different ways to help. If you can't do that, we always need financial help. Texas ranks 47th out of the 50 states on per capita funding for child welfare. You know, and we're #1 on prison funding, and I see a correlation there. But you know, we always need financial help. We have a big gala coming up October the 8th, I believe.
Okay.
And we can always use help with that. We have a big drive going on right now for kids to get them ready for school with backpacks and school supplies. We have a couple of events coming up to kind of back to school things for children and families. We always have the same kind of needs around Christmas. You can always become a sustaining donor if you would like. So go to our website, contact me directly, call that number, and we certainly can find a way for you to help.
Okay. Well, Mike, our time is almost up, and I want to take the time to thank you for being on today's show. And I want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to Attention Central Texas. I'm your host, Charles Jenkins. Have a great day, and God bless.